Okay, so welcome back. Make sure that you watch video 1 before you go into this video here. So before we were looking at how to find that last number that's going to complete the square. Now we actually have to look at these equations here because at this point we don't see that there's an issue. We have 3 terms here. The issue actually lies in the fact that there are 2 on the left side and 1 on the right of the equal sign. That is not typical. We don't want to deal with that. So we need to transform these equations. And ultimately that just means we need to make a space. So what I'm going to do here is I just change this equation around. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x. I'm going to leave a blank because that's the number that's going to complete the square. And then I have 5, and I'm going to need another blank because now that we have an equation, we have to find the number that completes the square, but we have to keep it balanced. So we have to do it on the left and on the right. We cannot separate those 2 pieces there. Then the procedure is exactly the same. So I find that middle number, the one that has the variable with it, but not a squared variable. So I take half of 4, or I divide it by 2. 4 divided by 2, and I get 2. Then I take 2 squared, and I get, 2 squared is 4. So that tells me that the 4 is the number that's going to complete my square. So I'm going to stick that right in on my blank. A positive 4 here, and a positive 4 here. Now this is where the fun part comes in. And yes, I'm being fun and optimistic here. I know everybody views this differently. I just need to start transforming this equation. So on the left-hand side of my equal sign, I have x squared plus 4x plus 4. I need to factor this. So I need to find a number that multiplies to this 4 and adds to this 4. And in this case, 2 times 2 gives me 4, 2 plus 2 gives me 4. So since it's the same number, I can write it as x plus 2 squared. Because 2 and 2, I could write it out as x plus 2 times x plus 2. But in this case, our goal is trying to get back to those equations. That's going to make it simple for us to solve. So writing it in the squared format, in this format, does not want to show up. In this format, there we go, is what's going to make it easiest for us. So they're the same thing. This and this are equal. We just want it in the squared format. Well, so I've dealt with the left side. Now I need to look at the right side. So I have 5 plus 4, and I get 9. And if you're looking at this, the left side is a perfect square, the right side is a perfect square. Now it's easy for us to solve. So I take the square root of the left side, take the square root of the right side. I get x plus 2 on the left, and I get positive or negative 3 on the right. Now we can solve this just like we did yesterday. So x plus 2 equals positive 3, x plus 2 equals negative 3. I subtract that 2, so I can get, there's 1 point that's going to cross at a positive 1. And then there's another point that's going to cross 3, negative 3 minus 2 is going to cross at negative 5. All right, we're going to do this 2 more times here, so let's try this again. So first of all, when we're looking at that middle equation, I have x squared plus 2x equals 3. We have a number missing. Even though it doesn't equal 0, even though it looks like we can change this around, we want it to be a perfect square, and the only way we're going to get that is if we add in some blanks. So I'm going to add in my blanks. So I have x squared plus 2x. There's my first blank, meaning I'm going to add a number there. And then I have equals 3. Well, because it's an equation, I need to add that same number to both sides. I need to keep it balanced. Remember, think of your equation as a scale. That if all of a sudden I added lots on this side, my scale is going to change and it start to slant. And I don't want that. I need to keep it equal. So I need to add that same amount on both the left and the right. So we take the 2x divided by 2, because we're taking half of it. Half of 2, or 2 divided by 2, I get 1. 1 squared is 1. That means my number that's going to complete this square is 1. You should already start to see that the numbers on the left and the numbers on the right are starting to form equations that we want to work with. 3 plus 1 is a 4. 4 is a perfect square. This is our goal. We're trying to get these to be perfect squares here. Then I need to find a number that multiplies to 1 and adds to 2. Well, 1 times 1 gives me 1. 1 plus 1 gives me 2. So that tells me my parenthesis is x plus 1 squared. I'm going to take the square root of both sides because they're both perfect squares. So I'm left with x plus 1 equals a positive and a negative 2. I can then separate my equation to get x plus 1 equals the positive 2. X plus 1 equals the negative 2. Subtract, subtract. Still do the same here. 2 minus 1, it's going to cross at a positive 1. And then negative 2 minus 1, it's going to cross at a negative 3. Okay, so I want to take this and I want you to actually see what this is going to look like. So I'm going to take my point, x equals 1, and I'm going to plot it on my graph. So x equals a 1. Now our points, when you find out that x equals 1, it's always going to turn into a coordinate where x is 1 and y is 0. In order to find out where it's crossing that y-axis, that y has to be 0. Then if we go back, we also have a point at negative 3. So when x equals negative 3, my point is going to be negative 3, 0. Remember, we're looking for where does it cross the x-axis. Now at this point, I'm just going to go back and look at my parabola is going to look something like this. Now obviously it should have crossed through that point. That's my handwriting. Bear with me. But you can see now what our goal is that we found where that parabola crossed our x-axis. That was our goal. So this is just another way to solve. All right, so let's try one more example, the last one on this page. We're going to graph it again, so we're going to do the whole thing. So our first thing we need to figure out is that we need to complete the square. So we need to find that number that's going to be added on the left and on the right. So I'm just going to rewrite this. So I have t squared minus 8t. I'm going to add my blank there because we know we need a blank, equals negative 15, and squish in another blank there. So I take half of negative 8, or I divide it by 2. It's the same thing. Half of negative 8 divided by 2, I get negative 4. I square that number, and now I get a positive 16. Remember, you should always have a positive number, because every time that we square something, even if it's a negative, it cancels out. So now I add that 16 to both sides. Then I just start combining like terms. Negative 15 plus 16 and I get a 1. 1 is a perfect square. If you don't get a perfect square on the right-hand side, this isn't going to work. It's not going to work as well as anything that we've seen. You're going to start dealing with decimals and fractions, and at this point, we haven't learned how to deal with that. So if you end up with a number on the right-hand side of your equation, or where there's just the numbers and there's not the variables, I mean, sometimes it's flip-flopped, then you probably did something wrong, so you should check your work. Because at this point, you should always end up with a perfect square number on the right-hand side. So 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36. Those are your perfect squares, where if I took the square root, I'd get a whole number. Now, on the left, we need to find what number multiplies to 16 and adds to negative 8. Well, negative 4 plus negative 4, so I have t minus 4 squared. Once I have it in that squared format, this is where I can start taking the square root and finding my answers. So the square root of t minus 4 squared is just t minus 4. The square root of 1 is a positive 1 and a negative 1. Remember, we take both options because we know that there's a possibility of it crossing 2 times. We need to give it to that opportunity. And at this point, you will see that when we complete the square, I really want to throw it a 95%, 99% on all of your quizzes and your lessons at this point. They're going to work out perfectly, as in you'll have both options there. All right, so then I can solve to find what t is going to equal. So I add 4, add 4. T is going to cross at a positive 5. I add 4, and t is going to cross at a positive 3. Negative 1 plus 4 is positive 3. So now if we go over here, I said it was going to cross at a positive 5 and a positive 3. And now you can see my parabola looks something like that. Our goal today is not to graph. That's not something you need to worry about. It's not something you need to be concerned about. I just want you to be able to understand what we're doing. Why are we finding these points? Well, we're trying to figure out where they cross. Because ultimately, we will be graphing them. And so you want to be able to find those different pieces because it's going to help you form your parabola in a perfect looking way. Okay, so your second mystery number, the first one for this video, so between the two you'll get your two mystery numbers, is 21. So 2, 1. Remember, today we went over completing the square, which is 5.03. Make sure you complete that by tomorrow. That's your assignment. Submit your mystery numbers. You'll have 6 mystery numbers this week because one of those days we did something a little bit different. So if you do not have 6 or you don't know what we did the different day, make sure you watch the video that I sent out on Tuesday's class. And then I will put your zeros and the schedule up for next week over the weekend. If you have any questions, I do have office hours tomorrow from 1:30 to 2 o'clock. And I love this little thing here. Can you see Friday yet? As in, maybe if we all work together, we'll get there, right? All right, so have a fantastic weekend, and hopefully next week should be a little bit more normal. Looks like we're on pace to have a normal week there. So take care, and I will see you all on Monday.